The bones of the tent are made of metal, and those are the ribs that provide the structural support when the tent is erect. And the covering is a very closely woven cotton canvas material. Originally, to get inside the tent, there's an entranceway which is kind of like a tunnel that the men would have crawled through. We're not using the original tunnel to get into the tent, so we kind of have to climb under one of the side areas. Luckily, there's no ground sheet pre-attached to the tent, so we can easily do that. And it's kind of this commando crawl, and then you slide inside, and it's almost like a different world in there. It's very, very contained and very quiet and calm. And compared to the outside, it feels quite spacious inside.
When I first crawled into the tent, we had to commando crawl in underneath the flange, and it was just so atmospheric. It feels like you're really connected. We're sort of hooded up in this Tyvek suit, and we've got our masks on and everything, and you can imagine how encumbered they would have been when they sort of crawled into the tent.
Before we went in the tent, we noticed that there are some soot residues on the original entranceway, and then when we were inside, we noticed that the soot was basically covering the entire interior of the canvas. That would have been from the use of a primus stove, which burns kerosene fuel. I think the textile components have held up extremely well in those extreme conditions, and also in the storage conditions that they were in after the expedition. Basically the whole tent got frozen over with a lot of other objects in the hut, and then it was thawed and pickaxed out of the ice in the 70s. So we can see some repairs. Those all add to the charm and the story of it.
When it's open, you can actually see the repairs underneath. So they've actually strapped the metal fixings, the poles that go through it, they've actually strapped them together with bamboo, and they've lashed them absolutely beautifully, really, really delicately and beautifully, and lots and lots and lots of rope. And there's a large repair on the back, which they've repaired by actually pushing the metal poles into the bamboo rod. So they've actually used the bamboo and the fact that it's got a hole in it to sort of go across. 100 years later, the repairs are holding up really, really well. Kate and I are looking at different kinds of conservation treatments to help its stability. Now the issue is really the iron poles and the corrosion on those, and that's really where we're looking at how we can treat those around the repairs. In terms of the other metal and also the wooden parts, what we're looking at is we put a release layer between the corrosion and the tent so that it's not continuing to weaken the fabric, and also to try and address the corrosion itself, to try and remove as much of that corrosion as possible. And otherwise the chlorides that are in the object will continue to form this cycle until there's no iron wet left.
Because of the close proximity between those iron elements and the textile, there has been a lot of deposits of rust onto the canvas. That is very acidic, and it has an extremely detrimental effect to the condition of the cotton fibres, and that's something really that we want to try and address if possible.
The metal wants to be really, really dry and at really low relative humidity, whereas the textile wants to be at a moderate RH. So those are the kind of things that we have to sort of work together to get the solution that works for both of them. And so that's really nice because you come up with these innovative and new ideas in order to treat it.
The main challenge is the sheer size. Especially if we're going to be looking at a cleaning treatment for the textile. The logistics of handling something this size and shape will be quite tricky. Another challenge, the poles no longer slide back and forth through their sleeves. So in order to access some of these areas, we're considering removing the poles somehow, and we're still in the process of figuring out what that might look like. It's great to have these inter-specialty collaborations, this back and forth sharpening of thoughts and streamlining of ideas and processes that can result in some really amazing work. It means a lot to me because I can engage with a piece of significant history that's both important to New Zealand but also internationally in terms of the history of Antarctic exploration.